Hey, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to share with you an Angular course top 50 Angular interview questions. After completing this course, you will be able to crack any Angular interview. These are the topics from which questions are covered in this course. Hi, my name is Happy and I help candidates in cracking technical interviews. We will start from the very basic topic Angular framework. Then we will cover questions on topics, components and modules, data binding, directives, decorator and pipes, services and dependency injection, lifecycle hooks, observable, HttpClient, RxJS, and at last, TypeScript basics. If you want to see the list of all the questions, then you can see the list in the description box. From there, you can directly jump to any question. So let's start with the first topic. This is the first topic, Angular Framework. And here is the list of the questions covered in this topic. Maybe you already know the answers of these questions, but it's good if you can quickly revise them now. I also marked some questions as very important because they are frequently asked in the interviews. Before starting the first question, here is a request. I saw there are so many likes in entertainment channels are getting from their supporters. But we who teach and build careers of students do not get enough likes. So please like, subscribe and give some support to us also. Now let's start with the first question. Here is the first interview question of Angular. What is Angular? I know maybe you already know the answer, but I will answer it in a different and more elaborative way. By the end of the answer, you will be familiar with all basic terms used in Angular. See, this is the way web application works. Client with the help of browser will send the request to server and then server will get the data from the database and respond back. Now your browser understands three languages, CSS, HTML and JavaScript. Server languages are C#, Java, PHP and many more. Now for building large and structured web applications, we need frameworks around these languages. For example, in server-side case, we have .NET framework for C#, Spring for Java and Laravel for PHP language. Similarly, at client side, we have Angular framework. Why we need framework for client side? Because nowadays client side code is increasing and increasing. So we need a framework to structure the client side code also. Now here is the conclusion and definition of Angular. Angular is a component-based framework for building structured, scalable and single-page web applications for client side. We will discuss questions on component in upcoming questions. I already explained the importance of structured applications. Now every application should be scalable. That means it should open and flexible for any enhancements or upgradation in near future. That is scalable. Now what is single page application? Let's quickly see it. In single page application we only have one page and the body content of that page will be updated as per the request. Let me quickly show you this. See, here is a website. Now when I am clicking to the navigation, then this reload icon is turning to cross and it is reloading. Page is reloading here and redirecting to a different page, which means that here we have multiple pages and therefore it's not a single page application. Now let's see the example of single page application. See, here is youtube.com, the most popular one. Here when I am navigating, then this reload icon is not turning into cross, which means we have a single page here and only the internal components of the same, or we can say this page, are updating. But the whole page will never reload. This is the example of single page application. Here is the question. What are Angular advantages or why we need Angular? You know the answer, right? Angular builds single page applications. But as an interviewer, then I will ask you another question. We can make single page application in plain JavaScript also. Then why we need Angular then? So by the end of the answer, you will be knowing a detailed answer about the advantages of Angular and how to implement those advantages in Angular. That also you will come to know. So watch this. First advantage is with Angular, it is relatively simple to build single page application. Yes, we can develop single page application with JavaScript also, but it is relatively very simple to build single page application in Angular with the help of component based architecture, and that is the reason. Second benefit of Angular is Angular help us to make flexible and structured client applications. Nowadays, client applications are getting bigger and bigger and we have to properly structure them. Otherwise, later it will be difficult to support, maintain and scale them. Angular provides proper structure because it's OOPS friendly and you can create classes and interfaces in it. If you are from Java or C# background, you must be knowing the importance of OOPS, right? Same applicable in Angular also. If you are not familiar with OOPS, no problem. Later I will cover some questions on OOPS also. Next simple advantage is Angular is cross-platform and open source, meaning it can work with any operating system like Windows, Linux or any other, and also it is free to use. So that is the next advantage. Then reusable code is the next advantage of Angular. It means you can create code at one place and then use it at many places, which is a very good programming practice. Services in Angular is the way to create reusable code. Later I will cover questions on services in detail. And the last advantage is Angular is good for testability. Unit testing is a very critical part in our applications. So Angular provides spec.cs files to cover it. We will also cover a separate question on this. Now you know what are the advantages and how you can achieve them by using what feature of Angular. For any queries on this question, please comment and I will surely respond. Now this question is related with Angular history and everyone likes history. What is the difference between Angular and AngularJS? By the end of this video, you will understand why Google replaced AngularJS with Angular. Here is the interesting short story. Google first released AngularJS in 2010 and then they realized that there are some shortcomings of it and therefore they rewrite the whole framework and named it Angular. They removed JS from the name because JS stands for JavaScript and now the new version can use TypeScript also. So the name of the new version is Angular only. Now in 2 minutes I will show you some main differences between Angular and AngularJS. First difference is AngularJS only supports JavaScript, whereas Angular supports both JavaScript and TypeScript. One benefit of this is you can see errors in TypeScript at compile time only, which is not there in the JavaScript. Second benefit is TypeScript support classes interfaces, which is good way of programming, but JavaScript don't support them. Second difference is Angular framework has a model view controller architecture, whereas Angular has a component based architecture, and component based architecture is much faster than MVC architecture. Then AngularJS does not have CLI tool, but Angular has CLI tool, with which you can easily create components, services and other things with the templates. The next difference and advantage is AngularJS does not use dependency injection, whereas Angular uses dependency injection, and dependency injection is a very good design pattern and I will cover a separate question on this soon. Then next difference is AngularJS does not support mobile browsers, but Angular support mobile browser. And the last advantage or the difference you can say is AngularJS is not so fast. That's why Google replaced it with Angular. Angular is much faster because of its data binding technique and the component based architecture. You can see Angular is like an upgrade over AngularJS. In upcoming questions, we will see questions on components, TypeScript, CLI tool, and dependency injection in Angular. If you have any query about this question, then please ask me and I will be very happy to answer your queries. You are going really good. Meanwhile, here is a full course on Angular interviews where I have covered 100 interview questions on Angular. Here are the topics which I covered in this full course. If you want to try it, then the link is in the description. Otherwise, no problem. Let's again resume the current course. Here is a small question. What is NPM? Yes, you knew it. It is Node Package Manager. But how it is related to Node and Angular both? Why we install Node for Angular? By the end of this video, you will know about all these. So NPM is an online repository, or you can say library for Node.js projects. Then what is the connection with Angular then? Actually, Google only has developed Node.js and Angular both. So they keep the libraries NPM common for both. That is why we have to install Node.js before started working on Angular. Because Node.js will give you NPM and it is required for Angular development also. Now what is NPM? NPM or Node Package Manager is an online repository from where you can get thousands of free libraries which can be used in Angular projects. So these libraries can be used for Node development and can be used for Angular development also. See, here in the VS Code, this Node Modules folder is provided by Node Package Manager only. The Node Modules folder is used to save all downloaded packages from NPM in your computer. This is the answer of this question. If you have any queries, then ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer it. Here is the question. What is CLI tool? I will not just answer it, but I will show you also. See, in VS Code we have this terminal window and that is the CLI tool. What this window will do? From here you can generate components, services, modules, etc. for your Angular application. So the definition is, CLI is a command line interface tool that you use to initialize and develop Angular applications. For example, it is used in creating new project, creating new components, etc. Here we are creating the component test component and the CLI will generate the scaffold, or we can say the whole component template for us. Let me show you how. See, write the same command and press enter here and the component started generating. After generation, see here inside the source then app folder, we have this new component, test component, and all the files are automatically generated by the CLI tool only. That is the magic of the CLI tool. It will create the whole component structure for you. So that is the answer of this question. Hope you got it. Congratulations for completing the first topic. This is the second topic of this course. Component and modules. Both components and modules are very important part of the Angular framework. Here are the questions we are going to see from this topic. If you think any question is too easy for you, then you can increase the speed of the video anytime. Let's see the first question of this topic now. Here is the interview question. What are components in Angular? After watching this video, you can give a detailed answer about the components to the interviewer. So let's start. Suppose we have a website interviewhappy.com. Now here we will have menu component where all the menu items are present. login component where user can enter username and password, then product list component where all the products are displayed. So this is the idea of the component. In the single page there can be many components, and based on the request the components will be updated. So the page will remain same, but the components will be replaced or refreshed time to time. Now the definition of the components is: components are the most basic UI building block of an Angular app. Let me show you in the code also. See, here inside the app folder we have 4 files. These 4 files together will make a single component. These files are CSS file, HTML file, spec.ts file and the component.ts file. .css file used for keeping the CSS code for the component. See the CSS code for the component here. Then .html file used for modifying the HTML template of the component. You will see all the HTML code here for the component. Then the spec file is used for writing unit tests for your component. .ts means it will accept both TypeScript and JavaScript language. Then we have the most important file, that is component.ts file. Component.ts is the file which link all other component files like CSS, HTML, all it will link together. See, this is the way to decorate the component. And setting the metadata. Metadata are selector, template URL which is the HTML file and the style URLs which is the CSS file. We will discuss the selector in detail later. When you will generate a new Angular project, then Angular will create first component for you like this only. So this is the default component provided by the Angular framework. So this is the short story of the component. It is a basic building block of Angular application. We will discuss selector, decorator and metadata in upcoming questions. See you in the next question. Here is a short and simple question now. What is selector and template? You might be already know the answer of this question, but let's revise it quickly. Here you can see the app component screenshot. See, the first attribute of component is selector. What is this? The definition is a selector is used to identify each component uniquely into the component tree. For example, in your application you might have hundreds of components. Now to identify them easily, we assign them this unique selector value. So when the single page index.html will load, then this app root tag will be replaced by the app root component HTML. This is selector. Now the next part is what is template. Here is the template URL attribute. This is the URL of the HTML of this particular component, which is app.component.html file. You can also use direct template attribute to write the inline HTML here. For example, you can directly put the HTML code here. Therefore, the one-line answer is a template is a HTML view of an Angular component. This is the answer of this question. Now let's move to the another question. What is module in Angular? What is app.module.ts file? After watching this video, you can explain module to anyone. Let's first see the definition and then explore the module in detail. Module is a place where you can group the components, directives, pipes and services which are related to the application. Now let's see the module code. See, this is our app.module.ts file. When you will create the Angular project, then this file will comes with the project. This file is the root module and we will call it app module also. See, the module is registered by this ng module decorator. Then inside it we have declarations where we can declare multiple components which can be part of this module. So a module can have multiple components. This app component is the default component of this module. The next thing is imports. With this imports keyword we can use the services of other modules inside this app module. For example, by default browser module will be present in app module. And as the name suggests, this browser module provides services that are essential to launch and run a browser application. And that's why it is necessary to add this browser module in the app module. So a module can import other modules and then can use their services. If you place this export keyword with any module like this, then that module will be available for import in other modules, otherwise not. After this, we have providers in the modules, which I will explain later in a separate question because it is related to dependency injection and it is slightly complex and I don't want to confuse you right now. Then we have this bootstrap which will set that out of the declared components which component will be bootstrapped. If we have multiple components here, then you can set any one of them as bootstrap. With all this information, we will again repeat the definition. Module is a place where you can group the components, directives, pipes and services which are related to the application. If you are building a small application, then root app module is enough for your application. But if it is a big client-side application, then you might have to create more modules. And there are different types of modules which I will cover in upcoming questions. That's it. If you have any queries about this question, then ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer it. Here is a very good question. How an Angular app gets loaded and started? What are index.html, app root, selector and main.ts file? I will share the theoretical answer first so that you can explain it in the interview and then I will show you the practicality behind it. See, this is the process and just remember that. When client sent the request, then it first hit index.html page. Now Angular is used to create single page applications. Index.html file is that single page. Then index.html will invoke main.js file which is the JavaScript version of main.ts file. So what is main.ts file? Like every other application, main.ts file is the entry point of web app. It compiles the web app and bootstraps the app module to run in the browser. Then app module file will then bootstrap the app component. And then app component or app root component is the HTML which you will see finally in your browser. So this is the theoretical answer and you have to remember the sequence. Now let me give you the proof of above sequence. See, here is the code of index.html file. Here we have this loading string. But when we look at the browser, the string loading is not here. So what happened? Actually, this app root tag is not an HTML tag. It's an Angular component. Let's look at the browser again. Let's inspect here. See, at the end, these JS files are there. One of them is main.js. So what happened is when client hit index.html, then Angular CLI load these JS files with the HTML file. And now the main.js, which is the TypeScript version of the main.ts file, will execute. Now let's see the code of main.ts file, what it is exactly doing. Here is the main.ts file. Here the main point is this bootstrap module method which is right now bootstrapping the app module. We can change this to any other module also here. Then this app module code we are bootstrapping the app component which is also called app root component. We can also change this to any other component from the components available in the declaration part. Now let's see the definition of app component. Finally, here you can see that app root tag which was present in index.html file. So that tag now will be replaced with the app.component.html file because this is the HTML file for the app root selector property. So finally the summary is browser will first load index.html page. Then index.html will call main.ts file. Then main.ts will bootstrap app module and then app module will bootstrap app component. And in the browser you will see app component HTML file as the final output. So this is the whole story and that is the answer of this question. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any queries then please ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer them as my name is Happy. What is a bootstrap component and bootstrapping module? When the Angular web application will start, then the first module launched is the bootstrapped module. And the same is true for bootstrapped component also. Let me show you in the code. When Angular web application will start, then first the single page index.html will be loaded. And this will load main.ts file. And then this will bootstrap the app module. See the bootstrap module function here. See, this app module is the bootstrapping module. We can replace it with any other module. Now what is bootstrapped component? Let's go to the definition of this app module. Here you can see inside a module there can be many components declared like this. Out of these components we can see which will run first. We can set which will run first. That component name we will put here in front of bootstrap property. So now this app component is the bootstrapped component. We can also add multiple components in bootstrap property. For example, if I add header component here, then both of these components together will be bootstrapped component. This is the story of bootstrap module and component. If you have any queries about this question, then I will be very happy to answer it as my name is Happy. Congratulations for completing the second topic. This is the third topic of this course, data binding. Here we are going to cover questions on different techniques of doing data binding in Angular. Let's start with the first question of this topic. If you think any question is too easy for you, then you can increase the speed of the video. If you have not yet liked and subscribed the channel, then please like and subscribe. Here is a very important question. What is data binding in Angular? First, the definition. Data binding is the way to communicate between your TypeScript code of your component and your HTML view. So in our Angular project, we have our TypeScript code written in app.component.ts file. All the business logic like receiving data from the APIs is written here, right? But after processing the data, we have to display this in the HTML file which is also called view, right? And Angular provides us this app.component.html template file for displaying this data. Now the question is how to transfer data from TypeScript code to HTML template and then from template to TypeScript code. So for that reason we have data binding technique which does this job of passing data. Now there can be three ways to pass data. From component to HTML template which is output data. For this we have two data binding techniques, string interpolation and property binding technique. We will discuss them in detail in separate questions. Then from view to component which is input data. For this we have this event binding technique. And sometimes we need data to travel both sides, for which we have two-way data binding technique. The first three are one-way data binding techniques and the last one is two-way data binding technique. One thing here, HTML template and view are same thing. Also TypeScript code and component are same thing. C. Originally component is mix of HTML template, CSS and TypeScript file. But for simplification, we mostly say that this app.component.ts file is component. So do not get confused by the name. So this is the 4 types of data binding technique which we will discuss in upcoming questions. If you have any question on this question, then please ask me in the comment section. What is string interpolation in Angular? Let's check out the theory first. This is the flow of data in case of string interpolation. Data will go from component to view. So the definition of string interpolation is a one-way binding technique that is used to transfer the data from a TypeScript code or component to an HTML template, or we can call it view. Now there are 2 important things about interpolation. First is string interpolation can work only with string type, not with numbers, not with booleans or not with any other type. And the second important thing is it is represented inside this double curly braces. Now let me show you the same thing in the code for the string interpolation. Suppose we have this title field in component file and the value is set to first interview. Now we have to transfer this value to view or HTML template file from this component file. So how we can do this? The answer is simple with the help of string interpolation, like this. Put title inside the double curly braces inside the HTML view. See, now I will check the view in browser and it is present here. That means data is transferred from TypeScript or component code to HTML view. That is short answer of string interpolation data binding technique. Second data binding technique is property binding, which is like a big brother of string interpolation. Let's see that in upcoming question. If you have any queries about this question, so please ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer it. What is property binding in Angular? This is 90% similar to string interpolation. See, this is the flow of data in case of property binding. Data will flow from component to view same as string interpolation. The definition of property binding is like TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Similarly, property binding is also a superset of interpolation. It can do whatever interpolation can do. In addition, it can set an element property to a non-string data value like boolean. So string interpolation can only play with strings, but property binding can play with any data type. So this is the difference between string interpolation and property binding also. Now the question is why we need string interpolation. When property binding can do all the things which interpolation can do, then what is the need of interpolation? The answer is because string interpolation syntax is very simple as comparison to property binding implementation. That is why it is included in Angular framework. Let me show you the code of property binding now. See, here is the string interpolation code. Now let me place the property binding code here. Here it is. Both are same things. Both are doing same things. But the first one seems simpler than the second line, right? That is why for string case, which is majority, or I can say 80% of the case is string case only. So that's why we use string interpolation in case of string data binding. But sometimes we have to transfer the boolean value from component to HTML view, which is not possible by interpolation but can be done by property binding. For example, let's put a text box here like this. Now this text box is disabled, can be true or false based on the value received from the component code. We cannot do interpolation code for this is disabled, but we can do this with the help of property binding. Now let me go to the component code and put this is disabled equal to true. Now the template error is gone. See. Now we will check the browser and see the text box is disabled here. which is disabled with the help of the property binding. So this is the example of property binding in Angular. I hope you are now you understand when to use interpolation and when to use property binding. If you have any queries about this question, please ask me in the comment section. Here is the question. What is event binding in Angular? This is the flow of data in case of event binding. So when user will do some action like button click or mouse over in the HTML form, then you can catch that action in component file with the help of event binding. These actions are also called events. So the simplest definition is event binding is used to handle the events raised by the user actions like button click. Let me show you the code for event binding. See, here is the interpolation code and then the property binding code. Now we will see the syntax of event binding. See, this is the event binding code in HTML file. This means a button with text click interview will be present on the web page. And when we will click this button, then the click function will be called. This click function is nothing but a simple JavaScript function. And remember the syntax of this event binding. It is round brackets and inside that the event. Apart from click, there are many more mouse and other events. Let me show you. See, all these are events you can use. Now, right now this function does not exist, that's why this is showing error. Let me create this function in the component file. Now the error is gone. What this function will do is just log this line on the click of the button. This is just a JavaScript function, nothing much about it. Now let's go to browser and let's see the output. Click the button and then inspect to see the console. See, in the console the output is interview cracked. Now if you want to pass some data also from HTML template to component file, that also is possible with the help of event binding. Suppose this is some data which I will pass as parameters from HTML to component file. Let's go to the component file and inside the function give the parameter names with the data types and finally use them. For now, just add 1 plus 2. Now again go to the browser, click the button again and then see in the console the output is interview cracked and 3. So that is event binding, handling the events created by users. Now if we want to handle the events and then display the data at the same time in the HTML view, for that we have another technique which we will see in next question. If you have any queries about this question, then ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer as my name is Happy only. Here is a very important interview question in Angular. What is two-way data binding in Angular? If you know this binding, that means you know all the bindings. That's why interviewers ask this question as much as possible. By the end of this video, you will be able to explain two-way data binding to anyone. See, here is the flow. User will input data in some text box or input field in HTML template like this. The data will be passed to component file and then updated data will be passed back to this div or HTML view at the same time. So the definition is, two-way data binding in Angular will help users to exchange data from the view to component and then from component to view at the same time. This is the code format for it. First square brackets and then round brackets and then inside it ng model. Shortly I will give you the reason behind this syntax. Some people will call it banana inside the box also, but personally I don't like that. Anyway, it's up to you to remember it the way you like it. It may be square brackets and then round brackets, or you can say banana inside the box. Now let me show you the code of this two-way binding. This is the code of previous bindings: string interpolation, property binding and event binding. The code of two-way binding is like this. Input ng model inside the round brackets, then square brackets, then property name is name here, and then type equal to test. The reason for this syntax is square brackets represent property binding and round bracket represent event binding. So in a way, this two-way binding is the combination of property binding and event binding. So this is the reason behind the syntax. Now right now we are seeing two errors here. One is not accepting this ng model, and second, this name property is not defined in component file. To resolve the first error, we have to include form modules in the app module.ts file. Like this, add form modules in the imports. This will automatically import the header for this. Now if you see the template file, the first error is gone. Now for the second error, let's define the name in the component file. Go to the component file and set the property name with the value interview. So it's like this. Now go back to the HTML file. Now no error is here. So here we are able to type any text inside this input control, but at the same time we have to display that in the view also, in the HTML also. For that we will place a div here and put the name property inside the string interpolation. So that's it from the two-way data binding, and now let's see the output in the browser. See, here I am writing something inside the input field, and that is parallelly reflecting here in the div. So this is the two-way data binding technique. We are inputting something and parallelly it is reflecting in the output also. With this we covered all the types of data binding. If you have any queries about this question, then please post in the comment section. Congratulations for completing the third topic. This is the fourth topic of this course, directives. Here is the list of 7 questions. In these questions, we will see what are directives and how many types of directives are there in Angular. So let's start with the first question of this topic. What are directives? What are the types of directives? I have broken this question in several small questions so that you can easily understand it. Here is the simplest definition of directive. Directive are classes that add additional behavior to elements in your Angular applications. For example, suppose you have an element button like this. Now the color of this button can be changed by the help of directives like this. Now directives are of many types. Here are the types of directives: structural directives, attribute directives, and component directives. These are all built-in directives which are provided by Angular. You can create and add your own custom directives, but that is a different case. The first one is structural directive. Structural directives change appearance of DOM by adding or remove any elements in it. For example, now suppose here is a list of some weekdays in your web page. Now adding one more item in this list can be done with the help of a structural directive. ngIf, ngFor, and ngSwitch are the types of structural directives. We can discuss this in separate questions later. Now, attribute directives. The definition of attribute directive is: attribute directives change the appearance or behavior of the element. Above, the color change submit button example I gave already is the example of attribute directives only. ngClass and ngStyles are the types of attribute directives, which I will discuss in detail in upcoming questions. Then the last one is component directives. Component directives are the directives with its own templates. It means all the components where you have the HTML template are the types of directives only. So component is a type of directive only. This is the most used directive because components are used to display the first view. So this is the basic understanding of the directives. In upcoming questions, we will see more questions on different types of directives. If you have any question about this question, then please ask me in the comment section. What is ngIf structural directive? Let's first recap the structural directive definition. Structural directives are classes that change appearance of DOM by adding or removing elements. For example, in a list you can add or remove items with the help of structural directives. Now, as per structural directive definition, the ngIf directive is used to add or remove items based on the if condition. Now let me show you in the code how this if condition works. Suppose in the app component we have field array of students with two students here, Harry and Happy. Now this component has this HTML template. Now if you see here we have a list with two items. Now as per the code, if student.length is greater than 0, then the first list item will be displayed, which is 2 students. If student.length is equal to 0, then the second list item will be displayed, which is 0 students. Let's run both the cases. Right now we have 2 students, Harry and Happy. See the output in the browser. It is 2 students. Then let's remove those students from the list. Now go to browser. See, now we have 0 students. So the list items are displaying based on the if condition. So this is the job of ngIf structural directive. It will display items based on the condition written in the if condition. We will see some more structural directives in upcoming questions. What is ng4 structural directive? Let's see the definition first. The ng4 directive is used to iterate a list of items and then display them. If you know what is for loop, then it is like the same. Let me quickly show you in the code. See, in the app component we have field array of student list with 2 students here, Harry and Happy. Now this component has this HTML template. Here we have this list item tag, and inside that we have written the syntax for ng4 directive. This code will iterate every student inside the student list and then print the student. Do not worry about this double curly braces. This is interpolation data binding technique which will send data from app component to this HTML view. I will discuss this in detail in data binding questions. Now let's see the output of this in the browser. See, here we have the list of students here. So this is the use and the short story of ng4 directive. I hope you liked it, and if you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask. What is ng-switch structural directive? Let's see the definition first. ng-switch is an structural directive used in combination with ng-switch case and ng-switch default, and that both are also structural directives. If you are from Java C# background, then you already know how switch case works. If not, even then I will show you quickly in the code. So let's go to the code. See, same as ng4, here in the app component we have field array of student list with again 2 students here, Harry and Happy. Now in the HTML we will set the switch case like this. This ng-switch code will check the student list.length, which is the number of students present in the list. Right now we have 2 students in the list. So the ng-switch case equal to 2 case will be true. This condition will be true. Therefore the output will print the two students in the browser. Let me show you the same in the browser. See, the output is 2 students. So whatever condition of ng-switch case will be true, that output will be printed in the browser. Then what about this ng-switch default case? What is this? If none of the above ng-switch case are true, then this ng switch default case will run. See, here we handled up to 2 students case, but if student numbers are 3, then this ng switch default will execute and more students will be printed on the browser. So let me show you this. Let me add one more student Rami here. Now let's see the output in the browser. See, the output is more students in the browser. So that is because of this ng switch default case. So ng switch directive will display data on case-to-case basis. Whatever case is true will be executed. This is the story about the ng switch directive. If you have any query, then please ask me in the comment section. What is ng style attribute directive? Let's first recap the attribute directive definition. Attribute directive change the appearance or behavior of an element. Now here are the type of directives and then the type of attribute directives. We will only focus on ng style directive in this question. So what is ng style directive? ng style is an attribute directive that updates styles for the HTML element. So this is the theory and one-line definition. Now let's see the code. See, this is the HTML template file of the component. Here we have a div and the style attribute. You remember the style attribute of HTML? Now this HTML style attribute will set the background color of the div to red, right? Let me show you in the browser. See, here it is. I am happy with red color background. Now the ng style can also do the same thing. This is the code for ng style. The code format will be like this. ng style in square brackets and the attribute setting will be in the curly brackets. But the output will be the same in the browser. See, both the outputs are same. Now going back to the code. The thing is now why we need ng style over style attribute. What is the benefit of ng style over style attribute? The reason is because style, this is an static implementation. This what we are doing until now is a static implementation, and in real-time projects, the attribute assignment will be dynamic, meaning something will be received in app-component.ts file, and based on that we have to set the style here in the HTML file. Let me show you by setting the style property in TS file. See, if this is the code and we will know color name at runtime from component.ts file, then we have to set this color name something like this, like red in here in the component file. And then we have to pass this color name to the HTML file, and HTML file should be able to detect this color name. So that is possible with the help of ng style directive like this. Here is the code. Here you are setting the color dynamically. This is the benefit of ng style over normal HTML style attribute. So similarly, we can assign multiple attributes for ng styles also, like this. So this is the short story of ng style. Now we will cover the next directive, which is ng class, and that is one step above ng style. So let's see that in the upcoming question. What is ng class attribute directive? We already covered attribute directive definition, then ng style definition, and now we will cover ng class definition. ng class directive adds and removes CSS classes on an HTML element. Remember CSS classes. If you know how CSS class are set in HTML, then it is going to be very easy for you. Let me show you the same in the code. So now we already know this code inside app component HTML file, right? This is ng style directive I have already explained in earlier questions. Now normally in a good and big project we do not set properties values like this. Instead of this we use CSS classes. That is the more right and cleaner way. Same here, we will use ng class directive instead of ng style. Let me paste the code which I have already copied. See, this is the code of ng class. See, this is more simpler than ng style. All of these properties are replaced by a single word class name. Now what is this class name? Right now it is showing error. For resolving this error, we have to set this in app component ts file, as we have set this in this for ng style color name similar to this only. Let me set it. I will remove the command and it is set now. Class name equal to red white class. This red white class is the CSS class which we have to set in the CSS file. Let me open the component CSS file and set this. See, here we have this red white class set as background color red and font color is white. Now if we will check the HTML template file, then the short story is ng class directive is adding this CSS class in the div HTML with the help of app component and the component CSS file. So that is the single and short story of this ng class directive. And now let me show you the output in the browser. See, the background color is red and the font color is white, which is as per the CSS class red white class. So this is the answer of this question. If you have any queries about this question, then please ask me in the comment section. Now let's do a recap of directives with differences question, because differences are the favorite questions of interviewers. What is the difference between component, attribute and structural directives? Let's see the first difference. The first difference is component directive is responsible for showing the first view of the component. It is the most used one. See, this is the component directive and here is the template attached to it. If you will remove this component directive, then the first view of component will not be displayed, and that's why it's the most used one. Then structural directive is responsible for adding and deleting HTML elements in the view displayed by the component directive. And at last, attribute directive is responsible for changing the appearance of view by adding or removing style CSS classes of the HTML elements. So all the three directives are related to each other by helping each other in creating a good and editable component. Next difference is about representation. Component directive starts with @ like @component. Structural directive starts with asterisk sign like *ngif, *ng4 and *ng-switch. And then attribute directive set inside square brackets like square brackets ng class, ng style. So this is the quick answer of this question. If you have any question, then please ask me in the comment section. Congratulations for completing the fourth topic. You are going good and working really hard to achieve your goals. This is the fifth topic of this course, decorator and pipes. Here is the list of the questions. Let's start with the first question of this topic. Here is the question. What is decorator? This is a very important question. Let's see the simplest definition which you can tell to any interviewer. Angular decorators store metadata about a class, method or property. Now what is metadata? Metadata is data that provides information about other data. For example, suppose you have a book. Then things like author name, title, price, publisher, etc. all these information about the book is metadata only. Meaning it is giving you information about the book, but it is not the main content or data of the book. This is metadata. Similarly, here we have this component file. Now the main logic and data of this component file, component will be inside this class, app component class, right? But the information like selector is a metadata. Similarly, template URL and style URLs will be the metadata. So decorator store all the metadata of the component. Similarly, in module case, it is @ng module decorator which stores all the metadata like declarations, imports, providers, bootstrap. I hope now you understand what is metadata and what is decorator. One more thing about Angular decorator is all decorators are represented with @symbol. So this is all about this question. If you have any queries, then my name is Happy. You can ask me any question. What are the types of decorator? Let's see quickly. We have 4 types of decorators: class decorators, property decorators, method decorators, and parameter decorators. Now this class decorator is just a category. The actual decorators are @ng module and @component. These are the actual decorators. Here in the diagram, the decorators which are in bold words are the important ones, so you can remember them. The rest are not so important and they are slightly complex also to understand, so we will cover them in upcoming questions. One thing you noticed about the decorators that all these decorators start with @ only. This is the short story of this question. What are pipes in Angular? Here is the simplest definition. Pipes are simple functions which accept an input value and return a transformed value. We have 2 categories of pipes: built-in pipes which are provided by Angular framework, and then custom pipes which you can develop on your own and then you can use at many places in your application. And here are all the types of built-in pipes in Angular. Let me show you the example code of lowercase pipe and uppercase pipe. See, this is the code of component file. Here we have set a field title equal to pipe example. Now if we see the HTML template file, then we used this string interpolation to bind data from component to HTML template file. So the first line is the normal one. Then to convert this line to lowercase characters, we will use pipe like this, and the output you can see here in the browser. Similarly, we can use upper pipe like this. So this is how the pipe is accepting some input and then transforming it. Now next part is parameterized pipes. When we pass any parameters to the pipes, it is called parameterized pipes. Let me show you this with the help of currency pipe. Here we already have these previous pipes. Now let me put the currency code here. See, now this amount will be converted into dollar currency, as by default dollar is the currency. But suppose we have to convert this number to INR currency. For that we will pass a parameter like this in the code after the colon, and then that will be transformed value will be the INR. So this here you can see the output, one is dollar and one is INR. So this is the benefit of parameterized constructor. It will give you more specific result. This is the answer of this question. If you have any query, then please ask me. What is chaining pipes? The chaining pipes use multiple pipes on a data input. Like this. See, we have multiple pipes here. First, date pipe converting date of birth to date format, and then second uppercase pipe converting date format in uppercase. Let me show you this in the code. This is the previous component code. Let me put my date of birth here. Then in HTML template file, I will put the chaining pipes like this. Now here in the browser you can see the first pipe transformed the input data into the date format, and then the second pipe converted the string to the uppercase letters. So this is the short and simple chaining pipes. Congratulations for completing the 5th topic. Keep it up the good work and one day you will reach your goal. This is the 6th topic of this course, service and dependency injection. This is a very important topic from interview point of view. Here is the list of the question. So let's start with the first question of this topic. Explain services with example. Suppose in our single page application we have two components. One is login component and another one is menu component. Now, if any error will occur in these components, then developer have to log that error, right? For that, we will have to write some lines of error logging code inside both of these components. So you see, the same code of error logging will be at two places. And if we have 100 components in our application, then we have to place that code in 100 places. So now, in order to avoid that repeated lines of codes, we will create a single service which will be like error logging service, and then we will put that common code inside this file only. And then we will inject this service in both of these components. And finally, this error logging code is no more required. That's it. So the simplest answer is, a service is a TypeScript class and a reusable code which can be used in multiple components. And service can be implemented with the help of dependency injection. Therefore, in short, services are used for reusability purpose. The above example is of code reusability, but if you have some user data or any kind of data, then also you can create a common or centralized user data service and then remove the direct user data code from the components. So this is the second benefit of service. This is the answer of this question. In next question, we will see how to create the service and then how to inject it into the components. How to create service in Angular? The answer is simple. Open terminal and write command ng generate service and then service name logging. This will create the service in your Angular application. Let me show you the practical now. In your project, under source folder, first create a common folder. Name it services or shared or anything where you can keep all your services. Then open terminal, go inside the folder services, type cd services, press enter, write command ng generate service logging and press enter. This will create a service with name logging.service.ts inside the service folder. Here for now, ignore this @injectable. This is introduced in Angular 8 and I will explain its use in an upcoming question. Now here inside the service, we will put our common error logging code which will be then distributed to all the components. Now how to use this service in components? Suppose we have two components, login component and menu component. And here inside the constructor, we have the same error logging code. Why I put that inside the constructor? Because constructor will be automatically invoked in the component. But yes, you can place this code anywhere else also. Now let's put these login and menu component inside the app.module and then bootstrap it along with the app module. Now if you run the application in browser, you can see the app component, login component and the menu component on the page. And if I inspect the console, then here you can see the error logging statement from the constructor. Now we will go back to the code and remove the error logging from the component and put it inside the service method which will accessed by the components. Now we have to use service here in the login components. For that, one way is to create the instance of logging service class and then call the method like this. This will do the job, and if you see the browser, then you are now getting the error logging statements again from the logging service. But this is a wrong way to use the service. Why? Because in this case, if you are unit testing your components independently, then you have to include these services also for the unit testing. But You use dependency injection, then you can unit test these components independently from the services. This is one benefit. There are some more benefits also which are related with interfaces and class, and which will be beneficial if your Angular application is very big in future. For now, you just remember we will always use dependency injection for injecting the service inside the components. In next question, I will explain how this dependency injections works. How to use dependency injector with services in Angular. In the previous question, we have learned how to create a service and then how to use service in the component by creating the instance of the service. But this is not the most optimal way, as this is not good for unit testing and other things. So let's comment this code. Now let's see how to use dependency injection. I know it sounds quite complex, but trust me, it's a very simple process and a 3-step process. First step is to create the provider as the service name. With this, your component decorator will know that okay, our component might use this logging service at some place inside the component. It's like registering the service with the component. In second step, inside the constructor parameter, create a new property and then assign the service type here, like this. You can name the property as per your comfort, but the type name will be the service type only. Okay, now your service is ready for use anywhere inside this component. How to use it finally? With this code here, this dot property name dot method name of the service. This is the third and the final step. Here, this keyword will refer the current component only. Now here is a suspense. If I will comment this provider, then still this dependency injector will work. This is because we have provided the provider somewhere else, and that we call hierarchical dependency injector. And this will be the topic of the next question. What is this? And we will cover this in the next question. In previous questions, we have seen how to create a service and then how to use the service in the component with the help of dependency injection. Now let's see what is hierarchical dependency injector. We have many parent-child components in our applications, right? As per Angular, if we will inject the service here in the parent component with the help of provider, then it will be available to all its child components, and if we will inject the service here, then it will be available to child's components but not to the parent and to the sibling components. So that is the hierarchical dependency injection. Now let's see the code. In code, we can set the provider of the service at 3 places. The first place is at the component level, where we will set the provider inside the component like this. Then this service will be available inside the whole component and also the child components of this particular component, but not to the parent components or to the any other component. It's not available. The service will be. The second place where we can set the service is inside the module. Here by default you will see this provider property. You can set the service name here like this, and then this service will be available to all the components of this module and the child components of these particular modules. No need to put the provider in each and every component separately now. So this module will done the job for all the components itself. Then the third place is putting the provider inside the injectable decorator of the service itself, like this, provided in root. This we also call providing the service at root injector level. This introduced in Angular 8, and you will get this as the default provider, and with this it means your service will be available throughout the application to all the components of the application. So in a way, this is the best and the default technique of the Angular setting the provider. So this is all the information about the hierarchical dependency injection. If you have any queries, then ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer them. It is a revision question. What is provider in Angular? A provider is an object declared inside decorators which inform Angular that a particular service is available for injecting inside the components. We already saw this, but let's see quickly where we can set providers in our application. First, at the module level, like this inside the @ng module decorator, and then this service will be available to the module components. Then next, at the application root level, like this inside the service and injectable decorator, and then this service will be available to all the application components. And then at this component decorator level like this, and then this service will be available to this particular component and its child components. This is the short and simple answer of this question. If you have any queries, then put in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer, as my name is Happy. Here is the question. What is the role of @injectable decorator in a service? How to use one service inside another service? The common answer is, with @injectable decorator, one service can be used by another service. Meaning, if one service depends on another service, then we need this injectable decorator with provided in property in both the services. Let me show you this in the code. Here we have two services. One is logging service, which will log error with this log error method, and another is writing service, which will write error with this write error method. Now suppose writing service is a dependency for logging service, meaning we want when login component will call logging service method, then writing service write log method should be automatically invoked. So for that, we inside the logging service, we will pass a property of writing service inside the constructor, and then we'll call the method of writing service write error like this. Now wherever logging service will be used in any component, then this will first run writing service method and then only it will run logging service method. For example, this logging service is using logging service, right? Now let me show you in the browser how it will run. See here the login component, and then inside console, see first writing service will print the message and then only logging service will print the log error message. So here basically logging service is using writing service as a dependency. This is how one service will use the another service. Now the second question is, what is the role of @injectable here? Basically, injectable decorator is only allowing these services to be used by one another. So this dependency between these two services is only allowed by this injectable decorator only. Let me show you in the code. Open this writing services code. Here, @injectable decorator will inform Angular that this writing service can be used by any other service. If I remove this @injectable decorator from writing service, and if I open the browser again, see here you will see null injector error in console. That means we need @injectable decorator to allow this writing service to be used by any other service. So I will go back to the code and put the @injectable decorator again to make it work. Now if I will go to the logging service and I will remove the @injectable from the logging service, then also it will throw a compile time error. See here in the terminal, you can see the complete error here. It means we need @injectable decorator here also to allow this service to use other services. So the final conclusion is With add injectable decorator, one service can be used in another service and the decorator will be placed in both the services. If it is absent in any one of the service, then it will not work. This is the answer of this question. If you have any queries, then ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer it as my name is Happy. Congratulations for completing the 6th topic. This is the 7th topic of this course, Lifecycle Hooks. We will cover 5 questions on this topic. The last question is very important from interview point of view. Let's start with the first question of this topic. Before understanding at input, at output decorators and Angular lifecycle hook, we must know what are parent-child components. Suppose we have a parent component in our single page application with a input and a button field like this. Most of the time your app component or root component is only the parent component. And if there are any other components inside this component, then they will be called child components. So here this is the child component. Now let me show you how to do this in code. Here we have the fresh Angular project with app component and we will consider this as a parent component. This is the HTML of this parent component. Blue color border with some margin and text as parent component. And here is the browser view of it. Now we need a child component inside this parent component, right? This is the objective. For that, inside the app folder, we will create a child component. For that, open terminal, press Ctrl C to stop the application, write ng, G for generate, C for component and then component name which is child here and press enter. Here is our child component created and let me just put some HTML, CSS here for green border, margin and text child component. Do not much bother about this HTML here. This is just for designing. This has nothing to relate with the parent component. Just for the borders I have created it. Now the point is how to make this component as the child component of the parent component so that this child component will be visible here inside the parent component in browser. So that is very simple. Go inside the child component TypeScript file, copy the selector and then go to the parent component HTML file and paste the selector inside the parent component. So here we have the selector inside the HTML file of the parent component. We can put many child components like this inside the parent component, inside this parent component. If you remember, it is same as we put the app component selector inside the index.html file, right? App root selector. Now to see the changes, the parent inside the child inside the parent, open the terminal, run the application by typing ng serve and press enter. See, in the browser, the child component is present inside the parent component now. So we have established the relationship of the parent-child component. So this is the answer of this question. If you have any queries, please ask me in the comment section. Here is the question, what are lifecycle hooks in Angular? This question is very important and it is asked in many interviews. So what is lifecycle hooks basically? In simple English, a component from creation to destruction goes through several stages and these stages are the lifecycle hooks. These stages will cover activities like component instantiating, rendering the component HTML view, creating the child components if required, and finally destroying the components. Now, why as a developer we need lifecycle hooks? because might be we want to add some behavior in the component when it is instantiating. For that purpose, we need particular a component hook inside which we will code for this particular thing. So that is why a developer need component hooks. And here is the list of component hooks provided by Angular. You can code inside them to change the component behavior at any point of time. Here note that the first one, this constructor is not the part of the lifecycle hook. But it's a very important thing to know. That's why I have included it. We cannot ignore this. This is a very important part of a TypeScript class. Now let me give you some theoretical overview about some important hooks, which you can tell in the interview. After that, we will pick those hooks and will understand them in detail in separate questions. So quickly start with the first thing, as that is constructor. This is the default method of the TypeScript class that is executed when the class is instantiated. It always runs before any Angular hook and it is not a part of lifecycle hook. Second is ng-on-changes. It is called when the input property of the component changes. You remember input decorator? Yes, this is related to that. We will discuss this in upcoming question. Third is ng-on-init. This is the most important hook and it is called when the component is finally created. After this, we have this ng-do-check. This is not so important, but the purpose is when component is finally created via this ng-on-init. And if Angular is not able to detect some changes in the component until then that thing can be handled in this ng-do-check hook. So that is its purpose. After this, we have these 4 hooks which run only for child components, and if a component do not have any child components, then none of them is required. And finally, the last one is ng-on-destroy. This is called when the component is destroyed. So that is the whole quick overview of the hooks. Now in upcoming question, we will focus on the most important ones. If you have any queries, then please ask me in the comment section. Here is the question. What is a constructor in Angular? So here inside the component class, we will have the constructor like this. Now here are some important points about constructor. The constructor is a method in a TypeScript class that automatically gets called when the class is being instantiated. So this is one point. Another important point is constructor always run before any Angular hook and it is not a part of lifecycle hooks. This is another very important point. So the thing is now, why we need constructor? What is the use of these constructors? So the first and the most widely used is constructor is widely used to inject dependencies or services into the component class. There are other uses, but this is the most important one. In every good Angular project, you will find services, and how we use services, we use it by injecting them inside the components via this constructor only. I have covered services and dependency injection in detail in other questions. Now let me show you quickly how the constructor is the first thing which execute in the component class. Here in the code, we will put some log messages inside constructor and some messages inside ng-on-init lifecycle hook. Now let me run the application. Open terminal, type ng-serve and press enter. In the browser, inspect the document, then go to console and see the message printed. First message inside constructor will be executed. At first the first message here is from the constructor only, and then the message inside from the ng-on-init will be printed. So this shows that the constructor is the first thing which will be executed inside the component. This is the answer of this question, and if you have any queries, then please ask me in the comment section. Here is the question. What is ng on init lifecycle hook in Angular? This is the most important hook of the component lifecycle. The definition is ng on init signals the activation of the created component. That means Angular framework has created the component and now developer can write some code inside this hook for component operations. Component operations like loading some content to the component, setting subscriptions, etc. etc. So this is the primary thing and primary role of ng on init. You can tell few more things about this hook to the interviewer. For example, this is the second hook and called after ng on changes. ng on init called only once during the component lifecycle, unlike ng on changes which may be called many times. If input property is not there, then ng on changes will not be even called at all. But ng on init will be called only once. And then Angular knows this is a very important component to code, so when you generate a new component, then this ng on init code will be present by default inside the component. So this is all about the ng on init lifecycle hook, and if you have any queries or feedback, then please write in the comment section. Here is a differences question, and differences questions are the favorites of interviewers because with this they can check two concepts with a single question. Now the question is, what is the difference between constructor and ng on init? Let's start with the definition of ng on init. ng on init is an Angular lifecycle hook which signals the activation of the created component. Remember, it's an Angular lifecycle hook, and when this is called, when the component is already created. On the other hand, the constructor is a method in a TypeScript class that automatically gets called when the class is being instantiated, meaning constructor is not a part of the Angular lifecycle hook. It's a part of the TypeScript class, and Angular framework and TypeScript class are two different things. TypeScript can be used in other frameworks also apart from Angular framework. Right now Angular framework is using TypeScript class, but although they are two different things. Second difference is ng on init is called after ng on changes lifecycle hook, whereas constructor is called before any lifecycle hook. The first lifecycle hook is ng on changes, but the constructor will be called even before that. So when constructor will be called, the component is not yet created or not yet ready. Now the most important difference is when to use ng on init and when to use constructor. This can be a separate question and it's a very important question. When to use what for coding? When ng on init will be called, everything about the component is already ready, or you can say it is already created. So developer use it to perform most of the business logic on component, and that code will be written inside this ng on init method. Lifecycle hook. Because if you will perform operation when things are not ready, for example, if you will perform business logic before the ng on init, then many a times application can break because the component is still not ready. Let me give you a comparison here. Suppose in real, the humans, if you put education or job stress in a newborn baby, then what will happen? Then things will not go as per the expectation, because many things like the brain, the body, the physical, that are not ready, still not ready in the human babies or the human child. So there is a time. Similarly, in component lifecycle also, the ng on init hook meaning is the component is mature now and we can do operation here. Before that, it can be too risky. Similarly, when constructor called, when we will call the constructor or the application started, then constructor is called, everything in component is not ready. only some things like component is still in the development phase. It is still not created or not developed. So at that point, mostly we used for just injecting the dependencies only. So this is one very important thing which we do inside the constructor, and that is injecting dependencies. Apart from this, we can declare variables, instantiate some classes, but not more than that. Very limited code should be placed inside the constructor. Because why we inject dependencies in constructor? Because dependencies do not have to do anything with the component maturity. It is not related whether your component is created or not created. That's why I inject dependencies in the constructor. I hope now the differences are pretty clear to you, and you can explain these same differences in the front of the interviewer easily. If you have any queries, then please ask me in the comment section. Congratulations for completing the 7th topic. If you are here, meaning you are really working hard and soon you will reach your goal. This is the 8th topic of this course, Observable, HttpClient and RxJS. All these concepts, Observable, HttpClient and RxJS, are related and work together. That's why I created single topic for them. We will cover 5 questions on this topic, and this is the list of the questions. Now let's start with the first question of this topic. Here is the question. What are asynchronous operations? I know might be you already know the answer, but this is a very important thing for observable, because observables are used to perform asynchronous operation and handle asynchronous data only. So let's just quickly understand asynchronous operations. So basically, JavaScript is a single-threaded programming language. That means if you have sent a request to web server and it have 4 tasks inside it like this, then all the 4 tasks will execute one by one. And if a task take longer time, then the next task has to wait for it. For example, here you can see first the task 1 will run, and after it will be completed in 10 seconds, then only task 2 will run. This we call synchronous programming or single-threaded programming, and that is what JavaScript does. Now if you notice here, these 4 tasks will take around 28 seconds to complete. On the other hand, asynchronous programming, if task 1 is running, then in parallel other tasks can also run. Here you can see in the diagram that the whole set of 4 tasks will be completed in just 10 seconds. Sometime, depending on the CPU, it may take some more time also, but in any case, asynchronous programming is more efficient than synchronous programming. Now the question is, how to achieve asynchronous programming in asynchronous operations for JavaScript. In JavaScript, we use promises, but TypeScript is the superset and advanced version of JavaScript. So here we can use promises and also an advanced technique which is called observables. In upcoming questions, we will see what are the differences between a promise and observable, and why we should use observables in Angular. If you have any queries about this question, then please ask me in the comment section. Here is a very important question. What is the difference between promise and observable? Before differences, first we should know what is common between them. Promises and observables both are used to transfer the data asynchronously in JavaScript. Otherwise, JavaScript is a single-threaded programming and it will do operations synchronously only. Now see what is the differences. Let me show you the working first. See, this is our system. Client will request data from Angular server and Angular server will request data from the API. Let's first see how the promise will work. Suppose we have huge data to be transferred from the API to the Angular server. For example, around 1 million records has to be fetched from the API. then this server will start receiving data from the API, and this will take some time to receive all the data from the API to the Angular server. Now here you notice this client is still waiting for the data to display. So there is a delay in delivering the final data, which will not be there in the observable. So that will be the advantage of observable. So here in promise, once the whole data is ready, then only it will send the whole 1 million records data to the client at one go. This is the basic working of promise. A promise promises some data and provide it only when whole data is completely ready. Now to overcome that delay limitation, we have observable in Angular. Observable just stream data. Streaming data means continuously processing chunks of data. Now here you can see how it is processing the data, the chunks of data. It will not wait to collect the whole data and then it will process. So basically it will be the continuous process. Now let me give you all the differences in written, because you have to tell all the differences in interview. So here is the first difference which we already discussed. Observable emit multiple values over a period of time. We also call this streaming of data. So data is streaming continuously, whereas promise emit a single value at a time. So it will first collect the data and then only it will pass the data to the client. Next difference, observables are lazy. They are not executed until we subscribe to them using this subscribe method. For example, if you have written some code in your Angular service for observable, which is receiving some data from some API, but if there is no component which is subscribing this data, then this observable written in the service will not even generate the data. And it is very beneficial as it will save the resources and memory of your CPU. Whereas promises are not lazy. They execute immediately after the creation. It means whether some data component subscribe them or not, it will anyway generate the data, which will take resources, memory of your CPU, and that's why it is not performance friendly. I know lazy means not good in humans, but when it's come to programming, then this lazy loading is very good. Because it will load the things when it is required, not without it. Now next difference is observables have subscriptions that are cancelable using this unsubscribe method. So a component can cancel the subscription of data sent by observable. Okay. Whereas in promises there is no such cancelable thing. So promises are not cancelable. So these are the main differences. We will see them in detail when we will code for it. If you have any queries about the differences, then please ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer it, as my name is Happy. Before coding observable, let's quickly see what is the relation of RxJS and observable. What is RxJS? RxJS is nothing but the father of observable. Now here is the screenshot of definition from the RxJS website. RxJS is a library for composing asynchronous and event-based programs by using observable sequences. We already know what is asynchronous operations. It means multiple tasks in a request can run parallelly. Now event-based programs means when you are sending the request, then you should get immediate and continuous response from the server, and that is done with the help of observables. You remember streaming of data? Yes, that is the continuous response. I know it is little hard to remember this definition, so here is a simple definition. RxJS is a JavaScript library that allows us to work with asynchronous data stream with the help of observables. So this is like little much modification of the actual definition. Now why we as an Angular developer need RxJS? The answer is very simple. Because observable is introduced by RxJS library only. It is like RxJS is the father of observables. Angular has not created observables. So there is a misconception that observables are part of Angular. This is not right. We use RxJS in Angular to use observables. Similarly, plain JavaScript or any other client framework other than Angular also can use observables. So this is the next important thing. Now here RxJS stands for Reactive Extensions for JavaScript. Now RxJS has two main players. The observable, which streams the data, or you can say send the data in chunks, and the observer or subscriber, which receives the data which is sent by the observable, or you can say subscribe the data. So basically observer and subscriber are the same things. In upcoming questions, we will see how it works in code. So this is the short and very basic idea of RxJS. Now we will move to the next question. Here is a practical question now. What is observable? How to implement observable? If you have seen my previous questions, then you easily understand that observables are used to stream data to multiple components in Angular. In other words, you can say it emits multiple values over a period of time. Now the question is how to implement observable. It's a simple 3-step process. Import observable from RxJS library, then create observable and emit data, and the last step is subscribe the data in the component. Now let's go to the code and do some practical. Here the first step is to import observable like this in app component file. See, very simple. Second step is to create observable. This is the way we call observable function. Now what this observable will do, this will emit the data for some subscriber or observer, right? So here we will pass the observer as an argument and then we will emit the data like this. Emit meaning just releasing the data. Here first we have printed observable start message so that we know that this my observable has started, and then we just printed A, B and C in console. Now the last step is to subscribe the data. This is the way we will subscribe the observable. This subscribe is now subscribing this observable, and now we have to display the values sent or emitted by the observable. For that, we will use this arrow function to print those values via this console.log method. Now let me show you the changes in the browser. Here in the console, you can see the messages observable started, then printed A, B and C. So the observable is working. So basically observable sending the message and then this subscriber is receiving them and printing them here. Now one very important thing. Let's go back to the code. Here, if we will not subscribe the data, then this observable will not even generate the data. Let me show you this. Let's delete this subscriber from here. Now go to the browser again. Here in the console you can see observable start message has not been printed and no ABC printed because observable will not start if there is no subscriber. So this is the basic idea when observable will work and when it will not work. Now just quickly look how the promise will work. If we go back to the code and here we just paste the promise like this. Now here we are printing a promise start message that which let us know that okay, this promise has been started. And here the subscription code should be deleted, so promise are not subscribed. Now go back to the browser again, go to the console and see the promise. See, start message, promise start message is printed. This means promise do not need subscription. Promise will anyway send the data and will start without any subscriber, whereas observable must need at least one subscriber to start them. And this is the beauty of observable, because if there are no subscribers, then why to even create or generate the message? For example, in real world, if a press is printing newspapers, but there is no one reading or subscribing these newspapers, then why to even print the newspapers? Means there is no sense, right? That is the wastage of resources and time in technology, it is the wastage of memory, right? I hope now you have a clear understanding about the concept of observable. In upcoming questions, we will see how observables work with HTTP client to get the data from the web API, and then it will send the data to the various components where it will be subscribed. So that is the actual way of working with the observable in Angular, because this is a real scenario. Now, if you have any questions or feedback, please write in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer them. Here is a quick question. What is the role of HTTP client in Angular? You know we can create our own services in Angular, right? And then we can use those services in our project. Similarly, Angular framework also provides some built-in services which you can also use in your project. So, HTTP client is a built-in service class available in Angular. HTTP client service is present inside this package. And now the most important thing, what this service does. Very simple, this perform HTTP request. Now here are the methods this service used for getting and posting data from the web API. But we are not going into the detail of all of these methods. We will only use get method here because it is used for observables to get the data. It will be used with observables to get the data. In the upcoming question, we will see what are the steps included in getting the data with the help of HTTP client and observables. If you have any queries about this question, then please post in the comment section. Congratulations for completing the 8th topic. This is the last topic of this course and you did a great job until now. In this topic, we will cover some basic questions about TypeScript. Here is the list of the questions which we are going to cover in this topic. So let's start with the first question of this topic. Here is the question. What is TypeScript? What are the advantages of TypeScript over JavaScript? After watching this video, you can easily tell any interviewer that why we need TypeScript in this world. Let's understand with the help of a diagram. See, here we have TS as the TypeScript, and you can see TypeScript have type system, enums, generics, interfaces and many more things. But JavaScript do not have those things. So this is the most important advantage of TypeScript over JavaScript. But the thing is, browser do not understand TypeScript code. So Angular compile or convert all the TypeScript code in JavaScript first and then run it on browser. Because browser do not understand TypeScript and it understands JavaScript only. Now let's see all the points about TypeScript. What is TypeScript and why we need TypeScript? See, TypeScript is a strongly typed language while JavaScript is loosely typed language. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, which means all the JavaScript code is also a valid TypeScript code. TypeScript has object-oriented features like classes, interfaces, etc. Whereas JavaScript do not have object-oriented features. TypeScript detect errors at compile time, whereas JavaScript detect errors at runtime only. Now let me show you the reasons behind all these points. First point is TypeScript is a strongly typed language. See, this is a TypeScript file, strongly typed.ts. Here we have declared a string with let keyword and then assigned a string value to it. Now if I will try to assign an integer value to it like this, then TypeScript will show compile time error. That means this variable is strongly typed to a string now and cannot be converted to any other type. This is a very good thing. Otherwise, in future, anyone can assign any different type value to it. And that will not show any compile time error, but will break the application in runtime because that is not the correct way, right? Now JavaScript is not strongly typed and it is loosely typed. Let me show you this. First, compile and convert this TypeScript file to JavaScript file. For that, open terminal, type tsc strongly type.ts strongly type.js. This will convert this TypeScript file to JavaScript file. Yes, there is an error in this TypeScript file, but still the JavaScript file will be created. Now see here in the JavaScript file which is created, there is no compile time error. And you can assign any integer value or any other type to it, which is not a good thing and which means JavaScript is loosely typed. That means TypeScript is a strongly typed language and that has the advantage over JavaScript. Second point is TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, which means TypeScript have all the things which JavaScript have. In addition, TypeScript have some extra things. See, here is the JavaScript code inside the TypeScript file, main.ts, right? This is the JavaScript code, right? Now let me compile this TypeScript file to JavaScript file. Open terminal, type tsc main.ts main.js and press enter. And here the main.js file is created, right? And if you see the code of the main.js file, this is similar to the main.ts file. So that means that valid JavaScript code is also valid TypeScript code. And in addition to that, TypeScript provides some additional features like classes, interfaces over JavaScript, which means TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Third point is TypeScript has object-oriented features. See, this is test.ts file and we have a class and a method inside it. Now who all are from C# Java background, for them it will be very easy to understand. If I will convert this TypeScript file to JavaScript file, for that open terminal, type tsc test.ts test.js, press enter. And then this test.js file which is created, see, this is bit complex code to understand. That's why we say TypeScript has object-oriented features like classes, inheritance, encapsulation, etc. etc., which is a very good thing from building software's point of view. Now the last point is TypeScript detect errors at compile time. This I already explained in strongly typed language point, right? TypeScript here detect errors at compile time and JavaScript don't. That is another advantage of TypeScript over JavaScript. See, here I covered all the main advantages of TypeScript. If you have any queries about this question, then please post in the comment section. Now we will cover some questions of TypeScript language features and keywords. What is the difference between let and where keyword? Yes, we can use both let and where keyword in both TypeScript and JavaScript. Now let me show you the code. Here is my blank VS Code. Now I will create a new file and will name it let-var.ts and press enter. Now I have a program which I will paste here. This is a simple function which is similar in TypeScript and JavaScript both. Here inside this function we have a loop which will just increment the I with var keyword and then print it, right? And ideally this I variable should only be available inside the loop because it is declared also inside the loop. So it should be available only inside the loop, or I can say the block. But because of this var keyword, it is also available outside the loop also. See, here also it is showing no error. Now let me run the program. Open terminal, then write the command tsc let-var.ts pipe node main.js. Now here what is this command is doing? This tsc command will transcompile this TypeScript file to its JavaScript version let-var.ts to let-var.js. And then this node command will run the let-var.js, which will give you the output. Now see, first the statement inside the loop is printed with the I variable value, and then outside the loop also printed with the I variable value again. So I variable is available out of the block also, which means its scope is global, but only inside this function. Remember, even var keyword variable scope will not go beyond this function, only inside the function. But yes, it is out of the block, and that is not a very good thing. Now let me change this var keyword to let keyword. Now I variable is not available outside the for loop, and here is the compile time error. And ideally this is the correct behavior. A variable life should be limited to the block from where it is declared. You can say let keyword is the new and the better version of the var keyword. The conclusion and definition is var has global scope inside function, but let keyword scope is limited to the block only from where it is declared. This is the answer of this question. If you have any queries, then please ask me in the comment section. Here is a quick and short question. What is type annotation in TypeScript? Let me show you in the code. Here is my blank VS Code. Now here I will create a new file and will name it typeannotation.ts and press enter. File created. Now here you can see the variable with let keyword. And here we will assign a number value, then a string value, and then the boolean value. And ideally this is not right. Like assigning the same variable different data types is not right, but still here we don't have any compilation error. This file will definitely convert into a valid JavaScript file, but in future the application will break, right? So this is not the right way. So now this is better to give this variable a type here. So we will give a type number to this variable, and this is what we call type annotation. The definition is type annotation is assigning a variable or object a type, which will show the compile time error if we will try to assign this variable a different type. So this compile time error will reduce the future defects, and this is good for us. This is the answer of this question, and I hope it makes sense to you. Here is the question. What are built-in primitive and user-defined non-primitive types in TypeScript? So like every other language, we have types in TypeScript language also. These types are divided in two categories. One is built-in, or we can say primitive or basic types, and other is user-defined, or we can say non-primitive data types. Here you can see which data type comes in which category. As you can see, built-in types are used to store simple data such as string, number, boolean, etc. Whereas user-defined types are used to store complex data like array, enum, classes, etc. Now let's go to VS Code and see some types there. The first one is quite simple, boolean, and it will evaluate to true or false. Then other is again simple, number. Then we have string type. Then we have this array type. In this particular case, all the stored values will be stored of number type. At a time, we can store only one type of values inside the array. Not like one value is number and the other value is a string. That is not possible. Now suppose we want this kind of things where one number is a string and another is a number. For that we have this tuple type. Here we can declare a tuple like this and then initialize it like this. Position should be matched like string to string and number to number. If we will switch this position, then it will throw a compile time error. So this is the tuple, and these are some of the types which are commonly used in the TypeScript, and in upcoming question we will cover some more types of the TypeScript. Here is the question. What is any type in TypeScript? This is the most used type in TypeScript. That's why it is very important to know. Let's go to the code. Suppose we have this scenario. We have a variable here, but we don't know what is its type at the time of declaration of the variable. It can be a number or a string or can be a boolean in future. The type of this let variable will be decided dynamically at the runtime. And you don't want compiler to do any kind of type checking on this variable. If you can see right now also there is no compile time error. Why? Because if you hover over this I variable, then you can see this unassigned variable is implicitly set to any type. Implicitly means automatically or by default. So this variable right now is of any type. But to look it better and to make the application more readable, it is recommended to set the type to any, explicitly like this. Now you have the flexibility to do anything with this variable. You can assign it any data type, or you can make it as a function also. Even you can assign any property to it like this. In short, this any can be used for anything and TypeScript compiler will not check it. The definition is, when a value is of type any, then no type checking will be done by the compiler and the flexibility is there to do anything with the variable. This is the short story about the any type. Here is a very important tip for you. If you are learning any technology or whatever keywords, functions, classes, property you find, first find their real meaning in simple English and you will understand 90% of the thing. For example, in this case, what is the meaning of any? It's mean anything, right? So here also any data type, right? So this is the answer of this question. If you have any queries, then please ask me in the comment section. Here is the question. What is enum type in TypeScript? Let me explain this in code. Suppose you have a family of constants like this. Family means they are related. Here all these are nothing but the directions only. So in a way they are family members and direction is the family name. Now in order to use them anywhere and for simplicity, you will assign the number to them like this and access them anywhere like this. This is fine, but suppose these constants are in some other file, or you have to access this constant in this file or any other file from the other file, then it will be bit difficult to do. Now to make it simple, we will have enums. Enums are nothing but the named constants. For the same scenario, we will define the enum like this and we access it directly like this, where direction dot. See, the IntelliSense is showing you all the direction. Isn't it beautiful and isn't it accessible from anywhere like in another file or anywhere? So this is simple and clean programming. Also, you no need to assign any number to the enums. It will automatically assign the first value as 0, which is the default number of the start in enum. And the rest of them will be automatically 1, 2 and 3. If you want to start with some other numbers like 1, then assign it like this and rest of them will automatically become 2, 2, 3, 4. So enums makes your application good and more readable. If you hover over this direction.east here, then its value is 4. So that is the short story about enum, which allows to define a set of named constants. This is the answer of this question. If you have any queries, then please ask me in the comment section. Here is a quick and short question again. What is type assertion in TypeScript? Okay, so let's see the example first. See, here I declared a string variable and assigned a value to it. Now if I will type my name and press dot, then here the compiler is giving the suggestions of methods and properties which are possible with a string variable, right? But sometimes compiler will not able to identify the type of the variable. For example, if I will remove the type string of the variable like this from here, then if I write my name dot, then here no suggestions are coming from the compiler, because this my name is now of type any. Here you can see if I hover, the type is any here. And compiler is not capable to understand from this line that now the type of this variable is set to string. So compiler is not able to identify this. So now what will happen? For that we have to tell the compiler that this is a string variable now. How we can do that? For that we have to set the type of this variable like this inside the angular brackets, and then put the whole thing inside the round brackets. And now if I will type dot again, then here we can again see the suggestions. And now we can set this like this. So now the compiler knows the type of the variable, and that is we call type assertion. Type assertion is a technique that informs the compiler about the type of the variable. This is the answer of this question, and if you have any queries, then post in the comment section. Here is a quick but important question. What are arrow functions in TypeScript? In JavaScript, if we want to return a value from the function, then we write the code like this, right? This is an anonymous function. The English meaning is function with no name. Here this function will receive parameters a and b, and then it will multiply it and set it as the value of this x variable. Now to make it simpler and with less code, we will use arrow function. Let's see how. First, then copy and paste the same code here below, then change x to y, then remove this function keyword from here and put this arrow operator like this. Now for simplicity, we can also remove these curly braces and semicolon, and also only if it is one line of code, then we can remove the semicolon. And that is the syntax of arrow function, which uses this arrow operator and do the same thing with less code, which we were doing earlier here. Now if you are from the C# background, then you know these are also called lambda expressions in C#. Also, if we do not have any parameters, then we can remove the parameters from here also. Now let me put it back. Finally, the definition is arrow functions are the shorthand syntax for defining the anonymous functions. This is the answer, and if you have any queries, then please ask me in the comment section. Many congratulations for completing the course, and I wish you all the best for your interviews. My final advice to you is give as many as interviews as possible, and most importantly, never ever give up. And do not forget to like and subscribe the channel for getting more videos on and courses on interview and career series.